welcome to episode 150 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I am here with
Andrew Swafford,
Lydia Creech,
Nathan Smith,
and Bill Moore.
And in today's episode, we will be doing our usual 50 episode thing. I guess I don't know what to call it. Every 50 episodes celebration thing we do, which is where we bring all the kind of founders of Cinematary together and we do a movie swap.
Secret Santa.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Secret Santa, except we all know what the movies are.
Yeah.
And it's...
The audience doesn't. It's a surprise.
Sure, yeah. That is true, because I don't think anybody's really like rated the movies or anything on Letterboxd, which is the indicator. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's start this thing.
Oh, before we start, maybe we could do a quick announcement about things that are now available on the Cinematary website that were not available previous to this episode.
Oh, okay. If you lovely listeners go to cinematary.com and go to the top and click on store, you're going to be like, what store? I don't think that was there before. Or I don't know because I never went to the website. And you'll click on this link and you'll see we have some items with the Cinematary logo for sale. You can buy, there are t-shirts for men and women. There is a laptop sticker, which you can buy like a pack of 20 of them for like $5, which is crazy. Then there is a keychain if you're still into the 90s, and a bumper sticker.
Or if you still have keys.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, you can get all of those items on the Cinematary website. You buy them through the website Zazzle, and we get a little bit of the proceeds. But yeah, we would appreciate
we get like 50 cents to $1 of the proceeds. Again, we don't want your money, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, we don't really want your money, but I think that it'll be cool if you're a fan of the podcast. I think like a laptop sticker would be a nice.
We want you to wear our logo on your stuff.
Yeah.
Tattoo our logo on your
Definitely.
body. We will pay for it. We'll pay for Cinematary tattoos. Also, I don't own keys. I open my doors with an iPad.
Put a sticker on your iPad.
That's true. We do need phone cases.
We should make phone.
That'll
cases.
Be the next level.
We need phone cases.
If people we've already talked about that. We're not going to do that. But
fidget spinners.
All right. And phone cases.
You want to start the
yes,
movie swap?
We are going to do it.
Let's do it. We're going to start with my pick, which I picked for Andrew. Let me preface that I started with picking Sausage Party, but I was like,
honestly, I'm disappointed.
we could have we could have had that conversation. It would have been interesting. I don't really like Sausage Party either, so But my pick for Andrew was the 2007 film by David Fincher, Zodiac. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Brian Cox, Chloe Sevigny. Yeah, there's a lot of people. Anthony Edwards, John Carroll Lynch.
All the people.
And it takes place. It's a very long movie. It's about 2.5 hours and
2:45.
2:45, and probably the first part of it is more. It's taking place in the late 60s, early 70s, where the Zodiac killings are happening in Northern California, and it's kind of following the San Francisco Chronicle and their crime reporter, played by Robert Downey Jr., as they try to kind of track the killings, as well as the kind of the San Francisco police with the main detective, played by Mark Ruffalo. And then the second part of the movie is kind of focusing on Jake Gyllenhaal's character. He is a cartoonist for the Chronicle, and he becomes just obsessed with the Zodiac killer and is kind of trying to decode the whole message and figure out what happened, and that kind of is it takes part for most of the second part and kind of ends the movie. But I picked this for Andrew because, one, I think we talked about it in the Panic Room episode where we talked about David Fincher. I think this is the only David Fincher movie you haven't seen.
No, there are still a couple others. I need to watch Seven, and I need to watch Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Okay, but this one I feel
Oh, I haven't seen the game either. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the game's good. But I picked this one because I know this is probably one of my favorite. This is probably my top Fincher movie. I know this one is just, for me, it's very. I just kind of love that obsession with obsession, especially when it becomes more about Jake Gyllenhaal's character. He gets to play a lot with his kind of Hitchcockian upbringings. He likes there's that one sequence late in the film where Jake Gyllenhaal's character goes to this old projectionist's house, and it is probably one of the most terrifying sequences I've seen in a movie in some time. That just absolutely like scares the shit out of me. But yeah, I think that I love how it kind of plants you in this world of the 60s 70s San Francisco, and just with the costumes and the look and the just everything about it feels like you're implanted in this period of time. And I love how he just kind of crafts these multi layers of characters. But Andrew, I'm curious what you thought of Zodiac.
Oh, I'm also curious if there's any particular reason why you picked it for me specifically. Like, is it just that it's a movie that you love that's kind of a gap in my movie knowledge, or was there something specific about it that you wanted to see bounce off of me?
Yeah, I was kind of curious just to see how you would respond to some of the I guess to some of what this movie's presenting, the kind of how you would respond to some of these characters, how you would respond to kind of how Fincher frames and sets up this movie. He in the different kind of sections that he cuts it into, and I like how I love that it all kind of there's all kind of this connective tissue, but it feels like he kind of takes it into different wavelengths. He takes it up and down and moves and is constantly moving it. It seems like he's just kind of constantly moving it around and able to still keep this kind of central theme of obsession, but is able to kind of clue in on different forms of it, whether it's through Robert Downey Jr.'s character or Mark Ruffalo's character or Jake Gyllenhaal's character, or just some even smaller characters. I think that I was curious to see how you would respond to that, to just kind of this mass, this kind of epic quality that Fincher goes for. Yeah,
it's just so big. Yeah, so many people, so much stuff, so much time. But yeah, thank you for recommending it to me, because I really liked Zodiac, and it's a movie that I've checked out from the library before, didn't get around to it, mostly because it is kind of an intimidatingly big movie, right? Not only for the length, but also this is definitely a movie that has a big reputation. And I approached that with a little bit of trepidation, because I know that a lot of the crowd around Zodiac often, not always, but often is kind of the crowd that takes a lot of stock in like the IMDb top 250, like you got your Fight Club fanboys, and David Fincher has kind of without his own desire, he has kind of gotten wrapped up in that whole culture just accidentally. But I mean, as soon as I started watching it, all of those misconceptions kind of fell away. I thought that it was really enjoyable, even though it is 2 hours and 45 minutes. You really don't feel the length. It's a very smooth watch. And it, in a way, kind of reminded me of a movie that Nathan and I watched recently, Michael Mann's Heat. Because after Heat, I remember saying to Nathan, like, that's a movie that really needs to be 3 hours. Like, it has to have this room to breathe and this room for you to feel like this Zen-like clarity throughout the film. And I definitely felt like the runtime added to the experience of Zodiac, specifically with how it's this slow ramping up of tension to the point where you don't really get your protagonist revealed until maybe the last 45 minutes or so. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal is always kind of there, but
yeah, he's kind of minimal in the first portion. Like I said, it's more right. Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo's movie.
Right. And I will say, quick side note, I was amused by how much Jake Gyllenhaal's character reminded me of our mutual friend John McCamus. I don't know if anyone else feels that, but he's kind of like this meek Boy Scoutish cartoonist who's kind of like
I can see
very
that.
quiet and very pleasant and very smart all at the same time. I don't know, just a lot of his
Drinks.
He what?
You should get John one of those. I forgot the special drink he gets
the,
when
like,
he goes out with Robert
blue
Downey Jr.
Hawaiian looking drink. Yeah, that's like the one thing that I felt like maybe didn't match with John, because John would just
Yeah.
order whiskey, you know. But anyways, people who don't know
Yeah.
all of us personally are very bored by that. Side note. But the first 2 hours of the movie really feel like exposition for those last 45 minutes. And I think that you could view that as an insult, like, oh, this is a movie that takes 2 hours to get going. But I really don't mean it that way. Like, I think that the 2 hours leading up to that really makes the last 45 much more intense. Like you were saying, Zach, there's that really crazy scene that, you know, if it came earlier in the movie, might not have the same impact, where Jake Gyllenhaal goes to the projectionist house, and he gets invited to the projectionist basement, and like your skin just crawls in that moment. If you didn't have the 2 hours worth of context of why that might be a terrifying experience, I don't think it would work in quite the same way. And I think that you have such an emotional connection to Jake Gyllenhaal's character by the time you get to that moment in the film, to the point where that theme of obsession really pays off, because you've seen people just like pore over all this evidence. David Fincher has just given you this information dump for such a long time, and you kind of get in the same mindset of those characters because you yourself are just kind of meticulously combing through all of this data and all this evidence in your mind. And there's definitely a direction that David Fincher wants to push you towards in terms of like solving the mystery, but there's still like a lot of loose ends left unexplored and a lot of different directions it could have gone. And so it really does keep you guessing the whole time. And once you start following Jake Gyllenhaal in the last 45 minutes, I think it gets really tense. And to make a couple other comparisons, a couple other things that I was thinking of while watching the film, aside from Heat, I was thinking of Brian De Palma's The Black Dahlia, which actually came out a year prior to Zodiac, 2006. And it's just crazy how different of an approach Fincher takes than Brian De Palma does in that movie. Like, both of them are taking these huge, famous cold cases and trying to kind of solve them retroactively through a movie. But whereas Fincher is just like so obsessed with the information of the case and the evidence and just like taking you through all the possible avenues that case could be solved through, Brian De Palma is much more interested in like giving you all of the the personal backstories of the detective solving the case, to the point where the case becomes this like really distant, abstract thing that you really don't know very much about at all. And so whenever it comes back up in the climax of the film, you kind of don't care about the case at all, even though the machinations of the movie kind of want you to. And I just thought that this worked so profoundly better than that movie. And I was also thinking about this as kind of a journalism thriller, sort of like Spotlight won Best Picture a couple of years back. And it also shares Mark Ruffalo as a lead. But I think that this is much more cinematic than Spotlight, much more engaging of a story.
Well, I was going to ask, one of the things I was thinking about today in preparation for this was, again, kind of the Fincher-Hitchcock connection. And I feel like probably the closest movie of Hitchcock's that you could relate to this would be Vertigo. I mean, I don't know if you see anything with that.
I mean, especially with the length of the movie and the way it's structured, where the central conflict of Vertigo doesn't really get revealed until the last 30 minutes or so of the movie, once you start to see the obsession of Jimmy Stewart's character come to full fruition. And, you know, just you mentioning that, it was not a connection that I had made while watching the movie, but there are a lot of connections, I guess you could make with Jake Gyllenhaal's character in Zodiac and Jimmy Stewart's here. Especially like in terms of their relationships. I mean, it's kind of an opposite correlation, but Jimmy Stewart's character is so obsessed with this woman that he kind of becomes a monster, and Jake Gyllenhaal is so obsessed with the case that his relationship with Chloe Sevigny's character gets really profoundly broken. And I loved how David Fincher used Chloe Sevigny's character, who I would like to add another side note, at one point is wearing a turtleneck and overalls and a cardigan all at the same time. All three of those things are different colors. And I was like, yes, Chloe Sevigny, I don't know how you're pulling this off, but you are pulling this off right now. But there's some great moments where Fincher uses Chloe Sevigny almost as like a prop to show the physical and the emotional distance that is growing between her and Jake Gyllenhaal. Like there's a moment, I guess right around the 2-hour mark of the movie, where Jake Gyllenhaal gets a call from somebody who's going to give him a tip about the Zodiac Killer, and he's just in the kitchen alone with his wife, and for reasons that are not explained, grabs the telephone and like turns the corner to have this conversation away from his wife. And there's really no reason why his wife can't be in the room for this conversation. But the fact that he does that, like, just gives you another, like, subtlety to that relationship and how this is all affecting Jake Gyllenhaal emotionally. And then there's another great conversation between them where Jake Gyllenhaal's, like, not in the frame for most of the conversation because he's kind of become this absent, neglectful partner. So, yeah, I mean, it uses a lot of cool cinematic techniques to tell this emotional story, but also like this very information-heavy nonfiction story. And I found it very gripping. So I'm very grateful that you recommended it, Zach.
Great. All right. Our next movie swap is Lydia and her pick for Nathan.
I threw a wrench in the system and I picked a movie for Nathan that I haven't actually seen before. So I guess both of our reactions are going to be surprised. But when I was thinking about movies to pick for you, Nathan, I went through your watch list first, and then I was also thinking about things that I'm just interested in and want to know about. And I picked Cruising by William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist and The French Connection. What are you doing, Zach? In the 70s, and I'm really big in like American New Wave stuff, and I don't know, Nathan, if you're as necessarily interested in that sort of thing, but I was curious.
I like Friedkin a lot. I really like Sorcerer and The French Connection. I have not seen The Exorcist. I've seen a couple of his other films too, like Jade from the 1990s, a really terrible erotic thriller with the guy from CSI Miami. To Live and Die in LA, also fantastic movie.
I should have picked The Exorcist, but wow. But I'm curious to how you reacted to Cruising. I mean, how does it fit in with the rest of your opinion of Friedkin's filmography?
Yeah, it's a blind
it's a weird
spot.
movie. Cruising, Al Pacino. It's a murder mystery. Al Pacino has to go undercover in the like leather bar scene in New York in 1980s. And I guess it's a weird little period piece because also this is right before HIV/AIDS became like a very big concern in that community. And I guess all the bars don't, that's not a scene really anymore. Maybe, I don't know.
I can't help but wonder. Yeah, definitely very controversial. I can't help but wonder if maybe you picked this just because sometimes I have an interest in problematic or controversial movies, which this definitely is, since when it was being made and when it came out, it was met with a lot of protests, and an alleged 40 minutes were cut from the movie and possibly destroyed by United Artists that depicted just like very graphic sexuality in the leather bars. And
Friedkin actually filmed leather. Yeah. Friedkin actually filmed. Those weren't extras. They were the patrons of the bars, I believe he said.
And apparently that stuff doesn't really add like a lot of plot to the movie. It just kind of makes it more ambiguous than it already is, and seems to maybe kind of add more questions into what's going on internally with Al Pacino's character, which I would be really interested to see that, but unfortunately it seems to not exist. I had been wanting to see this movie for a while, so I am kind of glad you picked it, just because it gave me an excuse to finally watch it. From the opening, which the opening title is just the word cruising, like in very large letters scrolling across the screen, I was already kind of like, damn, this movie, I'm into it, I'm on board, just because of that really bold title choice. Although it is the kind of thing where I was like, man, I wish I was watching this in a theater and not on my like 10-inch TV. So I think kind of the first part of the movie I was really into. It's a very interesting performance from Al Pacino. He looks very pale and kind of like this, he's like this sickly white color, and it's strange, I don't know, him coming from The Godfather, you know, being in which he's kind of very composed, very calm in that movie, I think, in those movies, and very put together. But it's before he became known kind of for a shtick and for a lot of yelling and really hammy acting, which doesn't really start happening, I think, until Scarface. This is still kind of in that much quieter mode of The Godfather, and he's doing, you know, he's doing a lot of looking. That's really kind of what a lot of the movie is, and I'm sure based on the descriptions of the missing 40 minutes, that is just 40 more minutes of him looking at other people engaged in sexual acts. So it's no secret that I'm a fan of movies that are about watching and that are about looking. I mean, I love Brian De Palma, so I was really into the movie from that angle. It's I feel like Al Pacino just becomes this kind of like blank cipher. I read one review by Dan Salit, and he described him as kind of opaque, which I thought was an interesting way to describe Al Pacino in this movie, just because this movie was criticized a lot and is still criticized, and I think there's maybe something to those criticisms, even though I don't entirely agree with them. But it is interesting that in this movie, the chief of police is like, hey, you have to go undercover. We are basically pimping you out to pick up this serial killer. You know, you are a seemingly straight guy in a relationship with a woman. We don't know anything about your previous sexual history. You're a police officer. And Al Pacino is just kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And doesn't really, like, he doesn't groan or complain or, like, really make a big deal about it. And the movie makes some points kind of about the macho culture of the police. The opening scene of the movie is two police officers who should be kind of, staking out a block, picking up two male prostitutes, or at least like gender ambiguous prostitutes. And then there's this really interesting scene where Al Pacino goes to a bar one night, and everyone in the bar is dressed like a cop, and they're all just boning down, dressed like cops. There are these giant handcuffs on the wall. And like, because he is the one person not dressed like a cop, the bartender or bouncer comes up to him and says, hey, are you a cop? We want you to leave. So obviously it's kind of making, these really valid, I think, and insightful points about that kind of macho culture. So I think it's interesting that Al Pacino's character doesn't really verbally or visibly or vocally express those kind of concerns. There are some things in his relationship with his girlfriend, played by Karen Allen, who I think this is the only movie I've seen her in that wasn't an Indiana Jones movie. It kind of makes it seem like maybe he is trying to compensate sexually with her for having to be around all these gay men, and maybe he feels kind of like he's kind of questioning things, so he tries to up his game with her to quell those questions in his mind. And really, that's kind of what a lot of the movie comes down to, is it seems like he may or may not be questioning himself. At the same time, it also potentially alludes to the fact that he is maybe the serial killer. It's this ambiguous question, but honestly, to me, that was sort of the least interesting part of the movie. I felt like I kind of felt like there wasn't enough of that. And when it gets to this point in the movie where it becomes more ambiguous and you start learning about the person who is probably the actual killer, there's some stuff about that character who's not even really much of a character, some kind of tidbits given about his life and some issues with his father, but it's just kind of there and sort of shoehorned in, and that to me was not very interesting. To me, honestly, the most interesting stuff was just kind of Al Pacino watching and looking and observing, and Friedkin shoots it in a very detached way. Perhaps kind of the most involved moment is this scene where Al Pacino and this guy do ether, and the camera kind of starts getting shaky, and there's some effects going on where it feels very.
The color pops when he.
And it's just kind of like it gets very weird, and there's the cutting intensifies, and it's starting to cut to a guy who's like chained to a cross getting anally fisted, and that is one of the few moments in the Leather Bars where I think that it moves away from a very detached and very kind of rigid style. Honestly, I think it's one of the most interesting things. Like this, you know, the movie is kind of questioning things about rigid sexual binaries, maybe, or also kind of the role of the cop, and especially the undercover cop, who is both kind of observer and participant and is trying to maybe blur the lines between these boundaries. I think it's maybe worth talking about this movie almost as blurring the lines between documentary and fiction, just because, like Lydia said, all of the extras in this scene were real people who you know went to these bars. It's kind of I honestly didn't really think about this while I was watching the movie, but I started thinking about it after, just because I was thinking a little bit about AIDS during this movie and wondering maybe how many of those people didn't live for that much longer. So I think it is kind of interesting in that regard, as something that is both very much a document of a specific place and time, even if it is the Hollywood version and kind of glossy and sleazy and obviously artificial. There's also some weird moments that I don't really know what to do with. Like, there's a scene where they bring a potential suspect in for questioning who was about to engage in intercourse with Al Pacino. Obviously, because Al Pacino is undercover, they bring him in for questioning too and pretend that he's not a cop. And there's just this guy who just appears.
And none of the cops respond to him, like, at all.
This guy just wearing a jockstrap and a cowboy hat, like this huge black guy, like the only, I think, like black character in the movie who is given, you know, more than just kind of like a background role. And he just walks up, slaps Al Pacino, and Al Pacino's like, "Why'd you do that?" and then he leaves the room, and then Al Pacino goes into another room, and this guy's just sitting on a chair, and Al Pacino's like, "Why'd you do that?" And then takes his cowboy hat and throws it out the window, and then the guy comes in and slaps the actual suspect, and then is never seen again, never mentioned again. The cops don't acknowledge him, like Lydia said, and it's just kind of this strange, like, I appreciated it, but I didn't really know if I was supposed to laugh or just be kind of startled or what. There's also another moment that I liked a lot, just connecting more to the watching and the looking, where there's a kind of a peep show porno that two guys are watching, and one of them is the killer, and the killer stabs the other guy, and his blood like spurts on the screen, and I really liked that moment. And there's also some great stuff. I'm always a sucker in movies for mirrors, just because movies are a mirror. So when a mirror shows up, hey, that's important. So I always take notice of that. And there's a moment in the beginning, in the first killing scene, where two men are beginning to kind of fondle each other, and it's just filmed into the mirror. Yeah, and then there's a brief moment where Al Pacino is lifting weights, looking into a mirror, which adds pretty obviously to the film's commentary on masculinity and
in the mirror.
And it's so much about performance, so that's really where it comes in. Lydia, I'm really interested to hear your response to this movie.
I'm glad I picked this for you, actually, because you approach movies in a way different way than I do, because I'm a sucker for like auteur theory and stuff, and so I was spending a lot of time thinking about how this fits into just everything else I've seen from Friedkin, who I don't really understand. I guess he wouldn't really be an auteur. I can't find like a through line through all of his works, because he creates these like really striking visual images. You were talking about the scene where Pacino does ether, and there's like a American flag sort of thing too that keeps lighting up, and he's got similar like just really shocking images in Sorcerer or The Exorcist or Killer Joe. This movie seemed very brown to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And even though there are visually striking moments, they're not necessarily movies where I feel like
style.
Yeah, it's not like you don't think about them necessarily for their style, even though they have good images. I feel like it's almost more kind of the structure of it. Like, the thing everybody knows the French Connection for is the car chase, which is really all about the precision of the editing. And this movie has a very elliptical structure, which is partly because of all the stuff that's missing, and partly just I think what he was going for. So it's so much about the structure, which is one of the things that I was kind of like back and forth on, because it just was a little.
And you mentioned Brian De Palma, and he's got that very clear through line of voyeurism and just looking at people and things. And this movie has that, but not necessarily the rest of Friedkin's movies. So it felt like a weird anomaly to me, and I'm glad I watched it, because it's also, I'm interested in this idea, and I think I'll talk about this with Andrew, of like putting transgressive acts on screen. Like, what is it for? Like, is he just filming these leather bars because it's freaky sex and the mainstream audience maybe wouldn't get a chance to get into that world? And is he making a comment about Pacino's character, or is he just filming to be filming and get a rise out of the audience? And sometimes, that line's not really clear to me.
Me too. Just because there are those moments,
it felt really explicit.
Yeah, there are definitely I think for me the one that really stands out is the anal fisting scene, as the scene where it's really kind of maybe played a little bit for discomfort. And also there are, obviously, in 1980s America, maybe a lot of people going to see this movie would not have access to information about certain gay subcultures. So there's like a really clunky expository scene where Al Pacino goes into a store and asks what the different handkerchiefs mean, and the guy at the store is like, oh, that one in your left pocket, that means you want a blowjob. The other one means you'll give one. This one means you like golden showers. This one means you're going to give golden showers. And he just like explains all of these different colors of bandanas. And it's just really like, it feels maybe a little dated just because which is not necessarily to its fault, just because that's, again, information that may not have been immediately accessible or known by everyone seeing this movie. Whereas now...
It's also kind of interesting just as...
yeah. No, go ahead.
Just as a document. Because, again, I don't know if this subculture really exists in the same way anymore. Because...
I feel like I think... things definitely do, but I feel like the kind of freewheeling sexual world where you just have like 100 people just out on the street all looking to hook up, like I feel like that,
and like no concern at all. Like AIDS is still over the horizon. Yeah. And so,
also, I have the Wikipedia page for this movie open on my computer, and I didn't even really think about this, but it says the title is a play on words with a dual meaning, as cruising can describe police officers on patrol and also cruising for sex. So it goes more to kind of like the blurring of different boundaries and binaries. And I think that opening scene where the two officers force the prostitutes to give them head as kind of indicative of that.
Well, it's interesting because the prostitutes are also dressed as cops. So it's like,
are
they harassing them because they're offended at like this take on their culture and like this weird reflexive thing?
And it also is like the gay characters in this movie are all like really into the kind of police, all like borderline Nazi fetish leather stuff, wearing the like motorcycle caps and the real kind of Kenneth Anger, Scorpio Rising type stuff, which is very, really kind of, I think, playing off of those archetypes of police officer and really masculine identities. So there is that fishy boundary where it's like, who really is who really are the fetishists here? Is it people dressed like cops having sex, or is it the cops who, claim to be men who are comfortable in their identities and whatever? So.
All right. Cruising. All right. Well, I guess our next pairing is Andrew and his pick for Lydia.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the fact that we get to do these movie swaps, because every once in a while something really just clicks in my head and I really want to force a specific person to watch something. So I really wanted to specifically force Lydia to watch the movie Belle de Jour by one of my favorite directors, Louis Buñuel, for a number of reasons. One of which is just that both of us are very interested in feminist theory and how those ideas get handled on screen. And we've also had a lot of conversations off mic, not necessarily about movies, but about like feminism and sex work and porn and all this stuff. By the way, this section of the podcast is probably going to get not safe for work just because of the nature of the movie. But you just listened to Cruising,
I already said the words
fine.
Anal fisting.
Anal fisting, like twice.
You just talked to... what are you talking about? It's already been there.
Belle de Jour is a movie that I really wanted Lydia's specific take on, because I felt like it could have gone either way. This is a movie that I thought Lydia would totally eat up or be completely repulsed by. So... quick summary before we get into the answer to that question. This is a French film by a Spanish director, Louis Buñuel, again, and it stars Catherine Deneuve as the wife of a French aristocrat. She lives a very comfortable life of luxury, but the relationship between her and her husband is very cold, very distant. You get the feeling that she, for some reason, doesn't feel 100% comfortable around him, especially when it comes to the topic of sex. And kind of out of the blue, 10 or 15 minutes into the movie, she decides that she is going to become a sex worker by day. She finds this brothel at this very nice apartment in town, all run by women, and she just signs up to be a prostitute by day and, aristocratic wife by night, unbeknownst to her husband. And this feels very out of character for Catherine Deneuve because she does seem so frigid for the beginning of the movie. But there are also a lot of strange, surrealistic sequences, as you often get with Louis Buñuel movies, where reality begins to break in ways that you do not expect, because he often plays the surrealism scenes in this movie straight, just like they would be in any other scene. But then all of a sudden, like, she's being whipped by carriage drivers or something. And you kind of have to do a double take and assess whether or not you think this is happening in the reality of the film or not. And if it's not, what does that tell you about the psychology of the character? So there's a lot to unpack here. Again, I feel like this could go either way with Lydia. So Lydia.
I wouldn't necessarily say ate it up, but I was not repulsed. And I think what helped a lot with that are those surreal, dream-like sequences. Because I guess at the core of it, this is a movie about a woman who, trying to explore her sexuality and does not have the language or education, resources to do that in a way that is very helpful in the long run. I got the Criterion version from the library and I dug into the supplemental material, and they had these kind of two feminist theorists who I did not look up to tell you on the podcast. They spent a lot of time talking about the female masochist, and the opening scene with the carriage driver, it's her being humiliated, and that's what she wants, but she does not know how to ask for that at all. And so kind of connecting that to starting sex work at this brothel. I mean, she's still, I can't tell, she looks down on it. I think she feels that it's actually very degrading work to be doing.
But it feels like she's a character, and this is very weird to talk about, but it almost feels like she wants to be degraded.
Yeah, the female masochistic tendencies, and she doesn't know how to do that in the relationship with her husband or whomever, and consensually. But it is consensually because she does consent to do this work. And it's odd because you can kind of tell maybe she's repulsed by it, but it's not necessarily presented that way by the film even. The woman who runs the brothel is very kind, and it's just hey, this is what we do, and I pay well.
Very classy.
Yeah. They play a lot of gin rummy. Downtime.
The daughter walks in at one point, and they start talking about the daughter's report card in the middle of this brothel while transactions are happening in the background.
And there's the lady who makes the
very
beds.
Very much not a surrealistic moment. That's just what's happening.
And I don't know, this probably says a lot more about me, but I also appreciated that the work these women was doing kind of just an economic reality, which I feel like maybe a lot of sex work is in the real world. One of the girls is yeah, I have a boyfriend and he knows that I do this, but I gotta pay bills or he can't work.
Yeah.
So shrug. But again, this probably says a lot more about me. It feels like the men are presented like super creepily.
Oh yeah.
The daughter who walks in like with the report card, one of the customer like tries to hit on her. It's definitely 12 or something, and I was like, oh.
I also feel like more so than the guys who show up at the brothel, a lot of the male characters outside of that context are really creepy as well. Like the friend, who she has various conversations with, and like is always trying to hit on her and like totally crossing the line in every like very public context that they see each other in, and like the relationships that she has with the men at the brothel are much more. I don't know.
The friend,
feels like it's playing by some sort of rules. Yeah,
they know what they know what they're there for. Like there are no social rules kind of governing that interaction. Like no one's pretending. The thing with the friend was interesting to me. It's her husband's friend who, I would be super pissed off if my husband thought this was a good guy to have as a friend because he's gross. But he's like always hitting on her, but he's only hitting on her because he thinks she's like Madonna whore sort of thing. Like the minute he finds out that she works here, he's like, you're not appealing to me. And that's highlighting a pretty gross aspect. And it takes a lot away from Catherine Deneuve's character. Not her whole problem, but part of her problem is like she doesn't have the freedom to explore her desires in any way because she is in this like restricted role. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, you would think of this character as existing and having a lot of privilege, right? And just like being this very powerful figure in her society. But I mean, relatively speaking, she is kind of confined to her social role and, like you said, doesn't have a language for her own desires, doesn't have any sort of outlet. Her entire purpose is just to kind of wait at home for her husband to come back. So despite the money that she has the possession of, she doesn't really have freedom, so to speak.
And another thing that was interesting from the Criterion stuff is they had interviews with the screenwriter and Catherine Deneuve. And the screenwriter spent a lot of time talking about the ending, which is where this kind of like reality and surrealism like literally are on screen together at the same time. It's the superimposition shot that opens the scene. And the screenwriters, and seems like a lot of critical thought about this movie are very fascinated by this idea because the friend who like comes and just dishes on the wife to the husband who's been in an accident, and so it's this ambiguous like, okay, now he knows what his wife has been up to behind his back, but he can't do anything about it, and she like they still can't communicate with each other. But then the return of this like carriage noise, the fantasy that opens the movie, comes in, right. And that's the finale.
Yeah, and also like sounds of cats meowing too. Like for some reason there are just random references to cats throughout the movie. Like in the first scene where she's getting tied up and whipped by the carriage drivers, she says to her husband, "I love you, please don't let the cats out." And they're like in the middle of a field somewhere. I guess that's your first clue that this is not happening in reality, because that is just like a very dream logic thing for someone to say. But this is something that still baffles me about this movie, even though I love it and think it's perfect. Like, what the heck is going on with cats in Belle de Jour?
Like actual cats on screen? I don't think so. I don't know, it's like maybe a weird symbolic thing, but Buñuel also doesn't do like the typical like Freudian symbolism stuff. Like, it's all weird shit. But the screenwriter says that he thinks the ending is like maybe a happy one, and then says it's tragic. And I'm like, that's pretty fascinating.
Her husband becomes like comatose or something at the end. Just describe that for our listeners, like what exactly happens.
One of her patrons from the brothel falls in love with her and then tracks her down in her quote-unquote real life, because she's been using an assumed name, obviously, to kind of keep those worlds separate. But he tracks her down and like tries to murder her husband because he thinks the only reason they can't be together is because of her husband and not because...
So I guess that's the exception to the rule of the men who are her patrons being mostly respectful. Like, this is the moment in the movie where it kind of turns and shows you that this is not all, nice and respectable as it had
it's
shown.
Not like all business.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like she's using him for her own repressed desires that she's not able to communicate to anybody.
She's a very passive character.
Yeah. She's not in love with him back, I don't believe. But again, like very passive and just lets him believe because it's like he's a thug and he doesn't have teeth. And so I've been knocked out. So...
I apologize about doing this, but in terms of time, we need to wrap it up.
Were you on our episode last year about Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie?
I was not.
That would probably be the next step, I would say.
Okay. Good to know. So,
anyways, I'm glad you liked it, and we're not repulsed by it.
Thank you for suggesting
We will talk more when we have more time off mic. Is that it for part 1, Zach?
Yeah, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with part 2 with our last 2 swaps after this. Hey guys, this is Zach. We're taking a quick break in the show to talk about something that could really help the Knoxville area. As you know, Cinematary is from Knoxville, and we're always happy to help the film community here. William Mahaffey of the Knoxville Horror Film Festival, who you've probably heard on the podcast before, he's a great friend of ours, is with me. He's going to be talking about the Central Cinema Project. William, why don't you real briefly explain to the listeners what this project is?
Some friends and I, we've run the Knoxville Horror Film Fest here for about 9 years, and we've started doing a lot of other screenings in town, like at Iams Nature Center, and we've wanted to do a theater for a really long time, and just based on the climate in Knoxville and talking to people, it seemed like now was a good time to do it. There's a lot of growth out of the downtown area into other parts of Knoxville, and so we started working on it late last year, and things have come around really quick, and we found a space, and so we're trying to raise money on GoFundMe to help us do the theater, and we've already raised about pretty close to $10,000, and we're actually going to sign the lease next week, and we're looking for investors and looking into doing some loans to help make it happen. But the crowdfunding has definitely been super helpful and helped us get on our feet, and we've been able to pay for our business license and a lot of other little things that helps us get the ball rolling.
Yeah. So I guess is the theater, the overall goal is, hoping to be kind of an independent movie space or, a revival house? Like what are you guys hoping to be showing once the thing is completed?
It's going to be one screen. I guess the most common term is a repertory cinema, where you just show older films, but we do want to show newer independent films too. We're not going to be showing the same thing that there's a Regal here that shows independent stuff, and we probably won't be showing the same thing that they do, but we're going to be showing stuff that doesn't come here. Like there's a lot of films that, because they're on video on demand, Regal and Carmike won't show them, so they never make it to Knoxville. So we're going to show a lot of stuff like that, and classics from all the way back to the beginning of cinema through 80s cult movies, up until movies that may have just come out a couple years ago that we really loved, and we thought they didn't get the attention they deserved, so we wanted to highlight them. So, and another thing we're going to be doing with our programming is teaming up with local groups. For instance, I actually talked with you and some of the other cemetery people earlier about maybe you guys doing some screenings there, and then doing, talks afterwards, or maybe recording a podcast afterwards. We've also talked with some other local film fests who want to do parts of their festival there, maybe do other screenings throughout the year. And a local writer named Kelly Robinson she's an expert on silent film and lost film. We're talking with her about doing a regular series. So we really want it to be, a big thing for the community where people can utilize the space for stuff that they want to show too.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I feel like I speak for the other cinematarians saying that sounds like a fantastic idea. We would love to be doing stuff there, and I know we've had a friend of the podcast, Darren Hughes, on. He's with Public Cinema. It's good that there's a space to be able to show all this stuff. So I guess real quickly as we finish up, if people are interested in helping out with this project, where can they go to donate or just be involved?
You can actually just type in Central Cinema Knox, KNOX. That's our website, or will be our website, but currently it directs you to our GoFundMe, or you can go to GoFundMe.com and search Central Cinema Knoxville. And then we have a Facebook account, a Twitter, and Instagram. And then because we did the Knoxville Horror Film Fest and we've got a big following with that, we communicate a lot of the same information there. So if you're following either of those, you'll see how things are going. And like I said, we're up to 10K, we're just under it, and our goal is 50K. So even if you only have $5, that helps out. Or if you just know people who are interested and tell them about it, that is a huge help as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll make sure to add the link that William just gave into the description of this episode, and we will also be tweeting it out and such. So you're welcome to go to the Cinematary page of the website to find that information as well. William, thank you so much, though.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's go back to the show. Back with part 2 of episode 150 of Cinematary. We're going to continue our movie swap. Our next pairing is Nathan and his pick for Dylan.
So I picked for Dylan the 1981 French film by one of my favorite directors, the late, great Jacques Rivette. Les Ponts du Nord is the name of the film, starring Boule Auger and her daughter, Pascal Auger. I think that is the correct pronunciation. I watched some pronunciation videos on YouTube.
That's not necessary.
Earlier,
just go for it.
So, I would at least like to box my way through a word, knowing that I may be close to it. I don't know. So the reason
I don't ever look up pronunciations. I just kind of go for it. It's YOLO. We only live once. That type.
Oh God.
Just go for it.
So the reason why I picked this movie, I've been hoping that Dylan would watch some films by Jacques Rivette. Most of his movies are a little bit hard to come by. There are not many that are widely available. I know Dylan had seen Paris Belongs to Us, right? You'd seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen that one. Because that was Criterion or whatever, right? Yeah. So it was the easiest, I guess.
Yeah, it's out there on... It was on Hulu before film struck. All that. So I kind of feel like... I think that... I'd at least hoped that Dylan would respond to Rivette, just because for me, I feel like getting into his films was kind of the like another step on the expanding brain meme of my cinephilia. Seeing his 13-hour long film Out One in the winter of 2015 was a really important watershed moment for me. Because it made me think about narrative in a way that I never had before. I think the closest reference point, I'm not the first to make this comparison, but I think it is a good comparison nonetheless, is to the works of Thomas Pynchon, where there's this great cloud of conspiracy going on around you, and you are just in it, and you don't really know what up or down is, and you maybe don't have a true sense of your surroundings or your bearings while you're watching it.
Oh God!
But
you don't have a point to the north. You don't have a northern point to.
So you're kind of trying to figure out where you're going. A lot of people, and myself included, have compared what Jacques Rivette does as a director to like the Dungeon Master and Dungeons and Dragons, where he sort of creates this scenario and sort of gets the clock running and then lets it unfold and then steps back. His films are not necessarily. It's not necessarily something where I'm like, oh, wow, I should really screenshot this movie and like post it on Twitter. Like, it is well composed and visually striking, but not in this kind of like, whoa, crazy way. It's almost I think the absence or the lack to his movies is as important as what is there. So I was hoping I wanted to hear Dylan's perspective on Rivette, and this was the first Rivette movie I saw, and is, after Paris Belongs to Us, probably the second most accessible, I think. So Dylan, I'm going to pass the mic to you. I want to hear how you felt.
Yeah. I think that aesthetic point is interesting in this one too, just because it is. So the three that I've seen as of right now is Paris Belongs to Us, Duel, and this one, Le Pont du Nord. And this one is particularly interesting because after Duel, for me, that one's like more of a fantasy and has a lot more popping colors going on, right? At least in terms of costuming, if nothing else. That this one is mostly natural light, right? Like they're mostly outside in this movie, which is striking. I like the comparison a lot too, to like a game master. And in this case, almost to loop it back around to the conspiracy theory thing, is that you, as you said, is you find yourself in it. Like the rules of the game end up like slowly revealing itself as you keep going forward, or you hit bumps or obstacles, right? And then you're like, oh, does this mean this then? Oh God. So, did we explain what this movie is kind of about? I mean, we talked about.
No, I while you were talking, I was like, I should probably have said that. But basically, I think in its most basic form, this movie is about two women wandering around Paris. One of them, Marie, has just gotten out of prison, and she really does not want to go inside because she's been inside for so long. She just physically cannot go inside. So like Dylan said, basically the whole movie is outside. And then Baptiste is this kind of weird, childlike, bikers, homeless, street child who claims to have just been born, I think at one point she says, and it really does kind of feel like she was just born, the way that other characters talk to her and the way she says things. And there's this kind of mystery. There's a man named Julian that Marie is meeting with that she loves, and there are maps and
yeah. No, that's
anything you need to add to that summary, Dylan?
It is hard to explain the experience of watching this, just a little bit getting into it, because back around to, again, this Dungeon Master comparison is that, you know, as you start, it feels like nothing exactly, quote unquote, is going on. You're introduced to both of those characters separately. Marie, as she's like in a truck bed, getting out and wandering around, and I guess eventually trying to find Julian. And then Baptiste, who is just bringing on Babylon, I think was like her first words, and I don't know exactly what she's up to, except that she's keenly aware of the lion statues in the city. Like, she's just absorbing all of the city that she can. And then they end up colliding. Oh,
and she keeps taunting a guy on a motorcycle.
I could not get over that. Like, she was, in relation to, so this guy was getting out a bike from this truck, this delivery truck that has like a dragon on the side, and it's just this bigger bike than what Baptiste is riding around in. And like, as soon as she sees that, she just starts like primping and just like coming at this dude with her tiny bike. And I thought that was a pretty good way to introduce her character in a silly way.
I also think it's important to mention that there's a lot about dragons and monsters in this movie, even though there are no actual monsters or dragons. Well, sort of. It's debatable. There is fire breathing. There's a beast that breathes fire. And also, the Marie and Baptiste meet because they run into each other 3 times, and then Baptiste is like, hey, we keep running into each other.
Yeah.
It's fate. Let's just hang out for several days, just walking around.
Right. Like, she has rules for engagement where, like, the first time they bump into each other and it's an accident, the second time is chance, and the third time is fate. And fate dictates everything for Baptiste, so that kind of is like, I'm now imprinted on you, I'm yours and you're mine, or something. But, so and because I think this will become important later, is... with Baptiste, the first time that they collide with Marie is when she's being distracted by looking behind her shoulder at one of the lion statues that she's obsessed with, and then she collides in her motorbike with Marie, and then she's lost her motorbike, gets broken, and then so she's just on foot for the rest of the movie. But okay, how this movie. I feel like I'm slightly at a disadvantage, not knowing the, like, layout of Paris. I think this movie does a good job, you know, getting you in there regardless. But there's something that I have to imagine is, like, either an even more of an enlightening experience or somehow even more obscuring. I'm on the line of whether or not you're Parisian and see this movie. Because basically this movie is like learning parts in the map of Paris, or like going to different parts of it, because it starts in like these really the beautiful part of Paris, kind of around the Arc de Triomphe, and then it slowly moves like into more just dilapidated and like destroyed rubble, basically, and. The way it gets you there is by following a conspiracy with swapping briefcases and a game, the Goose Game overlaid over a spiraled map, which, you know, I don't know, like, I get latched and hooked into it and it starts making sense. Just because you're following these characters, like, yeah, it kind of is like that. But as it plays out, it subverts itself, right? The rules that they thought they were playing by completely get usurped by the end, even though it undoes them. So this Goose Game, that I think Marie explains to Baptiste, like, right in the middle of the movie, like, the end of, or the beginning of day 3, it's split into 4 days, and it's supposed to end, you know, at the end of like 3 nights and days or whatever. And she explains that this map that they find, that this mystery, this conspiracy, whatever is happening, is somehow following this rules of a child's game, this Goose Game. and that there's specific obstacles like the inn and the bridge, and the grave that they have to go to slowly make their way to the center of the map where the end of the game is or where the treasure may be. And it's funny that basically Marie explains that this is that it's a game of chance, that's overlaid on what life is. So there's an intense tension, of this movie, of people's expectations of how things are going to go and then how it actually unfurls. Like, the difference between fate and chance colliding to one another, because as soon as they start overlaying the rules of the game on top of life, they're kind of causing it to occur in a self-fulfilling way. And I don't know how far to go with the spoiling of the ending. I guess should I go for it, Nathan? Okay, it ends on Marie being shot by Julian, the guy she loves, because I guess he slowly becomes a Max. And what a Max is like these spy observer people who just like take notes on everybody and are everywhere, but they mostly seem like men. I don't think it's Max, right? That's why it's so.
There's a lot about surveillance. Baptiste throughout the movie keeps talking about surveillance, and I guess
and that helicopter noise.
Yeah, and so it's just a very paranoid movie. And I was thinking too, it's kind of in the same way that in Eyes Wide Shut, which we talked about in December, like newspaper headlines and signs in that movie kind of comment on the action. And in the same way, movie posters offer the same function. Like there will be a movie poster that will say something like "The silence that kills" or "Wide open spaces," that somehow serves as a comment on the narrative. Yes. There's also a great scene at the beginning, like one of the first moments with Baptiste, where there's a poster for Akira Kurosawa's Kagemusha, and she like attacks it.
About to stab that dude.
It's just very strange. And I really like how it just kind of it turns this whole city space into something fantastical and into
weirdly meaningful,
like into a board game. Like there's a lot of one of the things I was thinking about, because the way Baptiste interacts with objects is like
like aggressively, a lot of times.
Projects
Seriously?
human characteristics onto them. And honestly, there was a year, 2 years ago now at the Film Society of Lincoln Center in New York, there was a series doing double features of David Lynch's films and Jacques Rivette's films. And I think in the same way that like in David Lynch's movies, just mundane, meaningless, everyday objects are endowed with this like mythic, spiritual potential, like an outlet in a wall can become a conduit to another world. I think in the same way, Jacques Rivette's movies, and this one in particular, are about that power of like projecting onto things and giving them human qualities and making them important because you want them to be.
Need it to be. Yeah. I mean, in this case, a whole city, right? Like all of these objects end up like, coordinating themselves into this weird, terrifying, meaningful web. I think it's earlier on in the movie, like in the first half, that Baptiste starts explaining her observations to Marie, and Marie's just like, "I don't see what you see," but Baptiste comments that the city is like a spider web, and right before she says that, there's like a city of the subway map. There's a map of the city subway system, and it definitely looks like a spider web. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Okay. And so, I mean, and the fact that like, a spider web, you get into traps. And in this case, it ends with, the moth getting trapped and shot, at the end is,
and then some karate.
Oh God, sorry. Yes, I don't know how we have not mentioned that yet. Yeah, Baptiste into karate. We're not. I'm not going to say the exact ending just yet.
Yeah. There's karate, though.
I would like to say, after listening to all of this, I have no idea what this movie is about.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I know.
I've seen this movie twice now, and I don't know what it's about.
The weirdly beautiful thing about it, because it is shot so simply, like to be fair on how you'll probably judge it, is that you'll need to watch it a second time. It really unfolds and keeps changing as the movie gets to the end, but like I need to watch this a second time to then just watch how it gets there in emotion.
Well, I think that's a good point to begin wrapping up.
So I'm going to explain karate real quick because it's important.
All right. Sure, yeah.
The guy that Baptiste, the mini biker, was coming at, was this other biker who turns into this side character that keeps showing up, who is simultaneously trying to tell them they're going down the wrong path by going deeper and deeper into this conspiracy in a game, and he's an ambivalent character because he seems like he's trying to just keep them out of it entirely, but I can't tell if that's for positive or negative motivations, right? But so, Baptiste and this dude slowly like gain an affinity for each other in a strange way, and Baptiste throughout the movie every morning like does a karate routine, which is just like a very it's supposed to be a rigid kind of exercise that you just enact as a warm up, as a routine. But at the very end they do it together, and that's the end of the movie. After Marie gets shot and Baptiste doesn't know what to do with herself, that dude shows up again, and the ending of the movie is just like this cross-cutting between how the footage usually looked and this handheld, weird, detached quality that definitely makes you think that they're being observed and watched. And they're just, he's teaching her the routine better, and that's it. And it's amazing, and just how that's just the end of the movie, and it's just baffling in a great way, and I want to watch it again. Yay, Rivette. There. It feels good to me. Workouts. You bet. Oh, and yep, workouts. Maybe the patriarchy somewhere in there.
Workouts.
Maxes.
Yeah, all his movies are just about workouts.
All right. Okay. I liked it. Thank you, Nathan, for showing me this movie. I need to watch it again.
You're welcome.
All right. I don't know how that ended either. All right. Well, our last. Yeah. No. All right. Yeah. So Dylan, you're gonna continue.
Zach, was he a Max?
I don't know what
the whole
that
time?
Means. All right. It's the last swap we have is Dylan. Your pick for me.
Yeah. So what was it? 1979. Howell Ashby directed a movie called Being There. It stars Peter Sellers and Shirley MacLaine, right? And Melvin Douglas and like Jack Warden. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie. But it's following this character played by Peter Sellers, who is a gardener for this old man who just passes away, and he just chance finds out that he has nowhere to go after the guy dies. Like, they don't need his service anymore. The house gets closed up, and that he's kind of out on his own. And apparently he's never, since he's little, growing up in that mansion as the gardener, he's never been outside before, apparently, and has only learned through TV and, being brought up by one of the maids of the house. And he's just kind of stuck out there, kind of flailing in a sad way. He's really polite, but he's not very smart, or it's like, I don't know exactly how to describe it.
He's very simple.
Yeah, okay, sure. I mean, he enjoys TV, he wants to be fed, and he likes gardening a lot, and that's what he's known for, or that's what he knows how to do. And so it follows him stumbling around and getting caught up in stuff in DC before he gets into an accident while admiring a large television and gets his leg almost crushed by a car, and it has Shirley MacLaine in it, and she's the wife of this other aging, dying gentleman who he basically charmed his way into his house accidentally. It's basically like a comedy of errors of like people assuming motivation onto him the whole time and him just kind of going with it because he doesn't understand how people work or how they're messing up exactly who he is. But I picked it for you, Zach, because I know you really enjoyed Harold and Maude, and it was directed by the same guy, and he has a lot more money in this, but in this movie, in this budget, but considering he is a 70s filmmaker, Hal Ashby, there's a way he kind of pushes back on the cynical aesthetic, I guess, or, a lot of storytelling in the narrative by having this sentimentality to it, but it's not overbearing in a real way. And I know you like Peter Sellers, and so I thought, because you hadn't seen this movie, that you should watch it. So what'd you think of it, Zach?
Yeah, that's the kind of back to kind of how Ashby. It is a very sentimental movie. But it's not. It doesn't feel like it's beating you over the head with this overarching message. It seems like it's a very genuine thing, and that kind of helps by having Peter Sellers as this central character, because he has this. This very warm, like, you understand why all these people are like, and like continue to like him and throw him into these different situations, because he's so nice. But yeah, it's interesting. He is like this. They never really like say if he has like some condition or anything, but he's just this very simple-minded gardener who, his
right.
The person who ran the house passed away, and so they're kind of like, I don't know what you're supposed to do here. So he kicks out. They kick him out, and then there's this kind of comical sequence where he's going from the house and just kind of wandering around Washington D.C. with this amazing. Let me see if I can find. I really like the song. Let me see.
Right.
It's like they've taken kind of like this like they've combined Richard Strauss's opening that they used for 2001 with like this soul music, and it's so cool how.
Yeah, isn't it the opening of 2001? It's the Thus Spake Zarathustra, but it's like a funky mix.
Oh, is it the same version that's in Saturday Night Fever?
Possibly, I don't know.
Ooh, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
But yeah, sure. It's really neat, especially with how they put it in tune with Peter Sellers leaving the house, where like his first step out of the house, it's revving up that bum bum, and then he takes a step. I love that. I was all aboard for that.
But then that funky bass just starts coming in. Oh yeah.
Yeah, then the funky bass comes in, and it's that's what he's kind of walking around to, and so yeah. They kind of have this whole. It is, and they have this kind of fish out of water thing where he's messing around with the different gadgets. But yeah, he's very much obsessed with television, and that's one of the kind of comical motifs that they're kind of using, where somebody will be having like either this conversation or coming on to him or doing something, and he just like will switch on the TV and just start watching TV, and then not just watch one thing, but he'll switch channels and be watching various programs. It's very the comic juxtapositions that happen because of that. So Shirley MacLaine's character ends up falling for him, because he's quiet and mysterious and polite. And I guess she's going to be alone once the Melvin Douglas character dies. Yeah, he's very sick.
He's very, very sick. And so she's alone. She doesn't have a lot of friends, and so they end up, having a connection, I guess, or at least from her. But it seems it's mutual. Anyway, so she ends.
I don't think he knows what's going on.
So she ends up. She wants to have sex, but he's just doesn't know what that means, but like something on the TV, like is on TV that's two people kissing, and then he starts furiously kissing because all he can do is just like reenact the things he sees on TV. But then at one point, I think it was early, it was like another scene, but it was in the morning, during breakfast that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is on, and that's on while she's coming on to him, and it's just like, won't you be my neighbor while, you know, she's trying to jump his bones, and it's just...
Mimic the TV?
Yeah. It's really good. Sorry.
The one thing that struck me most about this movie though is one, just having Peter Sellers in this lead role. He was nominated for the best supporting actor. I think he won it as well. Let me double check to make sure. No,
how's it supporting when he's like the main
lead actor?
person?
He was nominated for lead actor. Melvin Douglas won for supporting actor. Excuse me. But having Peter Sellers, is he, as an actor, I've always noticed with him that he kind of has this this kind of warm quality, even when he's in his most absurd moments. There's always something you can always just read kind of where he's going to next a little bit just through his face, you know, his facial expressions and his eyes. In this role especially, there's not much dialogue for him to really express how his character feels, and so a lot of it is just reading the eyes of Peter Sellers in these scenes, and Hal Ashby does a great job of giving you a lot of these these kind of close-up scenes. So like when you have these two characters kind of interacting, and you can tell that you know the Melvin Douglas character is trying to talk about some Washington Politico thing, and Peter Sellers is off looking at something else and checking out a car or watching TV.
But Zach, he's just profoundly thinking about what he's hearing.
That's very true. I just loved to kind of watch how Sellers reacts with his face, because you can see him reacting to what the person is saying or doing. You know, for instance, with like the Shirley MacLaine scene, you can watch him kind of reacting to her and noticing what she's trying to do, but then he's immediately taken away by the television or something else.
Or I mean,
you watch him
doesn't know how to complete the social interaction. He's just like, yeah,
exactly. So his face you can watch his eyes completely just turn away and divert themselves from that whole sequence. I'd like to mention that Jack Warden plays the president in this movie, and I was thinking about, he looks like if Donald Trump was actually healthy, that's what Jack Warden in this movie would look like. He's a healthy Donald Trump.
But no. To your point though, not about Jack Warden, but about faces. This movie, so much about social interactions, but faces, everybody's face. Like, there is some amazing baffled faces of people in response to Peter Sellers, right? Like, he'll say something that is like innocuous, but there's like a hollow ring to it, while all of a sudden just like, especially the doctor character, over the Melvin Douglas character who's passing away. He's always around the house. And he eventually is the one that finds out about...
Yeah, he kind of clues in.
Chancey Gardner's real identity and the fact that he's just a gardener named Chance, right? But there's just like this look on his face where after Peter Sellers will say something in response, and he's just like, did he just say that? Wait, no, that's just me, right? He didn't actually just say that. That's weird. Okay. So the faces of this movie is great.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, Ashby does a great job of kind of framing it so that, and he'll even play sequences where he'll just let everything play out without cutting and allow the actors just to kind of react to stuff. But the real kind of takeaway I took from this movie is I was thinking about the title and what it was saying about this kind of story, and I think the takeaway I have is that I think we as humans, I think we romanticize and like to think that we like to have this very in-depth dialogue with each other, and that we're going to be going back and forth, and there's going to be like cigars and whiskeys, and it's going to be, you know, amazing. But I think for the most part that we just kind of want somebody to listen and somebody to just kind of be there and kind of somewhat bat off what we're saying, but for the most part just kind of take it in and have a face that seems like it's understanding what we're feeling and what we're saying, and just, you know, that's it. I think that we just kind of want to talk to somebody, and we don't necessarily want a response or a back and forth. We just kind of need to get some. We just need them to kind of.
I was gonna say, on Douglas Rushkoff's podcast, he made a point a couple of months ago that, like, when people have conversations on podcasts, that is often like the longest sustained conversation they will have with that person about any particular thing. Right. So that's an interesting point to bring up, you know, here on our episode 115, like how much time we have spent just like gabbing at each other. Like, why are we doing it? There's some sort of human condition stuff there, right?
Exactly. And I think that that's kind of what you see in this movie, is that Peter Sellers is this character who is very simple. He doesn't ask for much, and he's not looking for much conversation. He just wants to garden and watch TV. But you have all of these characters, whether it's the Shirley MacLaine character, whether it's the Melvin Douglas character, or whether it's the Jack Warden character who's the president, who they just... they want something they want something from other people in life and just everything else in general, and what attracts them to the Peter Sellers character is just more his empty canvas that they can kind of insert their worries and their anxieties and their passions and their dreams and all of this stuff on, and he'll either just kind of retort with a smile or, you know, a small phrase, but that's all. Exactly, but that's all they need. They just need someone to be there. So that's what I kind of took from being there, is that he's just a person that's there, and that's a fine quality. And so you get to this ending sequence, which is they're at I guess spoiler alert. Yeah. What? There's the
what?
There's a little uncomfortableness the whole in 2017 the whole you know, the political stuff that's happening at that point. But in this ending sequence, I guess, spoiler alert, the Melvin Douglas character dies, and they're at his funeral, and the president is talking, giving a eulogy. And I guess the political thing is that you have all of these politicos who are carrying the casket to the grave, and they're all like planning who should be the next president, and they believe that that Peter Sellers character should definitely be the president because everybody likes him.
And because, like, he doesn't have a past that won't quote unquote cripple him.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have them kind of like you know, like scheming behind the president's back, and while this guy is dying. But then you also have the Peter Sellers character who walks.
Wait a minute though, and taking the dude's coffin into a pyramid with an eye on the top. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. It's there's a lot of stuff happening, and then you have the Peter Sellers character who walks off and is like kind of tending to this tree, and then pretty much walks across some water, and it just ends.
Oh yeah, but he's still walking on it.
He is, but now let me add this though. I was reading that Sellers was kind of angry about this and felt like this was the reason he lost the Oscar, which I can understand that, because it really does take the punch, because the ending is kind of profound. You have, at least with the Peter Sellers stuff, not the Illuminati stuff, but like you just have this where he just kind of you have this gentle music playing, and he walks out in the water, and it just cuts to black, but then it has the.
Oh yeah. Outtakes.
But then it has this credit sequence where it should just be normal credits, where they play this outtake of earlier when the Sellers character leaves the house. One of the things he gets into is he runs into this group of teens, and they like start threatening him and asking him if he was sent to them by this guy named Raphael, and so they.
gurney.
Yeah, so they like hold a knife or gun or whatever to his head, and is like, if you see Raphael, tell him this. And so they're like doing this outtake where at one point in the movie, the Sellers character is like lying on this hospital cot or whatever, and he's like, in the movie he asks this.
He's getting his knee examined, but yeah,
he's getting his knee examined, and he asks the doctor if he knows Raphael because the kids were black and the doctor's black. And so the doctor's like, are you kidding me, dude? But so in the movie he just kind of asks him, and he goes, no, I don't know who that is, and they move on. But I guess initially they were gonna like replay him, like Sellers replays exactly what the kid said, and so it's showing this outtakes where Sellers is trying to get through the sequence but keeps breaking down and laughing, and it is funny. But I just felt like I kind of agree with Sellers that it completely takes the punch out of the ending, because you have this really profound ending, and then you have this credit sequence going on, and you're watching these like bloopers, and it was a little strange. I just wanted to add that.
No, I'm with you on one hand, but on another, it almost just reinforces what Hal Ashby does in his movies, or at least the ones that I've seen so far, is that he subverts things in such weird, small ways. So in this case, ending it, going from like a profound moment like, who exactly is Chauncey and how can he walk on water, cut to, oh, it's just goofy Peter Sellers. Oh, God. And so I totally am like with you that it like, yeah. So.
Yeah. It was just like I was reading about that Peter Sellers was kind of frustrated that they kept that in the movie because I think he felt like it he felt that it just kind of undercut his Oscar because he has this fantastic performance, and then you just kind of have like the blooper reel where it's like a Judd Apatow movie where everybody's just dicking around at the end. You're just like, God, I mean, come on, guys. But I guess overall, to wrap up, I really liked being there. I think I agree with your point that you made at the beginning that it does have this kind of hammy quality in this message but it doesn't feel overbearing. There's this kind of gentle spirit that goes along through the whole thing, and like I've mentioned before, I really appreciated Peter Sellers' performance. It's a lot, it lacks the bombastic qualities that you would see in like Doctor Strangelove or even like the Pink Panther, where he's kind of doing more physical stuff, but he brings his physicality to more his facial expression in his eyes, because this character is unable to really speak in long devout thoughts, and so you have to kind of find that all in what his face is saying and what his eyes are saying, and I think that he just completely sells that. And I would recommend this to people. I think this would probably be a solid first Hal Ashby movie if you've never seen any of his stuff. I think Harold and Maude is a great one as well, and it kind of shares these qualities where he's kind of playing off different things. But I would if you're a fan of Peter Sellers, I would recommend being there. I think that it was kind of his swan song performance because he died a year or two afterwards. But yeah,
overlooked Hal Ashby, The Landlord, great movie. Also, Hal Ashby, noted ex-Mormon. Things we have in common.
Wow. Okay. There you go. I have
ran away from Utah.
One more comparison, where if you because it's like on the fence for people of how in the new season of Twin Peaks they relate to the character Dougie, but it's kind of like that, but a lot less painful, I think, because that is just it just, those scenes in Twin Peaks just keep going, and I think they're great and funny, but this one is like this one is like easier to deal with. Because Peter Sellers, it doesn't go that far. And just like there's nothing in there. It's just a vacuum.
I think they're great.
Mr. Jackpots.
Hello.
Okay, sorry. That's it. So you should watch it if you like that. There you go.
All right.
Well, shall we take a moment and reflect upon the 50 episodes since our episode 100 spectacular?
Been a long and winding road.
It has. I was looking back through our podcast feed to see what all we have accomplished / attempted in those 50 episodes. A couple things that stuck out to me. We did our second director series on Wong Kar-wai, which was really cool. And then for the first time, we did 2 actor series, Kristen Stewart and Keanu Reeves. I felt like that was really successful and something we probably want to come back to in the future. More actors to look at. I thought the documentary series was kind of a challenge to ourselves that I don't know if we necessarily crushed it, but I think we all grew in the process of doing that. We put out another longer video essay. We got ourselves embroiled in internet controversy with the Todd Gaines internet episode.
Controversy. Let's not oversell it.
Zach? Small.
What?
Well, I mean, we also ended up getting an interview with the Letterboxd CEO, which was probably our highest profile interview ever. And I think that Letterboxd series was probably the biggest engagement with our podcast that we've had. And now we're like selling merchandise and stuff. So I think we've grown a lot in the past 50 episodes.
I really like doing the mini series formats because I like thinking about a theme over like a month or so.
I think we accidentally had like a small recurring theme in this one of obsession, but that might just be because movies. So
cinephilia is obsession. We are all obsessives.
We stare at a white screen for too long. That's
delusional.
See images, color.
I don't know. You've kind of gone off the deep end a little bit in this part, Dylan, with your karate and stuff.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm excited to see what we can come up with in our next 50 episodes. I feel like one of the things that we've really developed over the course of the last 50 is kind of the website. I think that we've outside of just the podcast that people probably listen to. If you go to the website at cinematary.com, I think we've developed a lot of different writing voices. We have so many. One of the things I'm proud of with the site is that we have so many different people who are engaging in sending us, write pieces to write about with movies, whether it's a new release or it's a retro review. It seems like we kind of are able to get a lot of different textures for different subjects and different films. And I would hope we in the next 50 that we see even more of that. I would love to see more writing and more people, participating in that portion. But I think that at least in the last 50 episodes, the site has really grown to be something that could be something even bigger. But all right, I think we'll wrap this part up. It's gonna be a long episode, guys.
They always are.
You got. I mean, I figure it's 4th of July weekend. You can put it in 2 parts. You can listen to one part at one point and the other part at another point.
Yeah. There's not an episode of Twin Peaks on this weekend. Just listen to the podcast instead.
Exactly.
Supersized podcast.
So yeah, I think it'll be fine. But thank you,
Cinematary XXL.
But thank you so much to all of our listeners. We really appreciate and would love any sort of engagement, whether it's through an email or a tweet or a Facebook message. We're always happy to hear from you. And over the course of 150 episodes, we still like you guys, whoever the hell you people are.
Send us mail. Come on.
If you send us mail, we'll send you a laptop sticker. So.
Oh yeah.
Send us a Zodiac Killer letter.
Yeah. See Twitter for.
Please cut out pieces of newspaper and glue them.
But yeah, keep tabs on. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Thank you guys.
Keep tabs on Twitter for more ways to get free laptop stickers from us, because there will be them.
And free Twitter. Laptops.
Nope.
We're running out of steam. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see. Real quick, we should probably preview next week. We're going to be going back to our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series. We're going to be talking about Chaplin's Monsieur Verdoux. We're going to be having a guest. Dr. Charles Malin of the University of Tennessee is going to be joining us again. He came and talked about The Kid about a year ago, but he's going to be talking about Verdu, and it's going to be a good chat. We're going to have him this coming up week, and the week after that, we will be talking Night of the Hunter with Jeffrey Couchman, who wrote the book on Night of the Hunter, at least the movie. So
Oh my god!
So the next 2 weeks on Cinematary are going to be very interesting. But thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.